Hi there and welcome to this module, which I would call Premiere Pro Basics. I'm going to walk through several things that I believe is essential for somebody editing videos that come from a program like Videos or Vidnami or something similar, where you already have quite a good quality video that you want to manipulate and create something more of, or cut things together and so on. So I'm going to walk through several things. Now in Premiere Pro, this is what you would be presented with. The screen is what you would be presented with when you start out a new project or open a project. So if you already have projects, they would be listed underneath, but I'm going to start with a new project. The reason I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this demo 7. The reason I'm going to do that is it's quite handy that you can just take a video, throw it onto this timeline, and the screen dimensions of the video that you threw in there is taken straight away. This means you don't have to set up any screen dimensions. So typically, there's 3 screens that you might deal with. Is a landscape screen that is typically 1920 by 1080 pixels, or a portrait screen which is 1080 by 1920, just the other way around, or square 1080 by 1080. There, you guessed it. So I'm going to take a file and drop it onto this timeline. So I'm going to take one of these animations and I'm going to pull it onto the timeline and just drop it there. Close my window and see what happens. And there now we have a video layer and an audio layer. When you import into Premiere Pro, you need to be careful that this box is highlighted, especially if it's not the new, like there I just took one file into a brand new project. But sometimes when you've already been working and you've clicked on somewhere else, you see what's highlighted in blue there. If this timeline is not highlighted, it's not going to work, or things are going to be a little bit wonky. Perhaps often, in my case, the audio doesn't come with. The other thing that you've got to check out for is that at least one of these layers, these video layers, is highlighted like that. And when you have a problem with an audio not importing, then it could be the fact that all the audios are ticked off. One of them at least needs to be ticked on, and then you would enter your files. Now in this particular little area of this module, I'm going to talk about importing and exporting in the same little session because it's just efficient for me to do that right now. So when you've exported a file and then you go back to it next time, sometimes you will find that there's a lot of empty gaps. Well, they go like an orangey color, and you will have an error message says they can't locate the assets or whatever it's called. I'm not quite sure. The problem there is you might have renamed a file, you might have moved a file, or you might have deleted a file inadvertently. So it's important that you manage your files in folders properly, especially if you want to come back to a video and edit it later. Personally, I'm quite rubbish at this. I tend to make videos so that I'm done with them and then I move on. Otherwise, I run myself into trouble. I tend to just keep some of my filmed files on an SD card. So if the SD card is not present, it can't find the files, and when you open the project, you can have an issue. So I'm talking about files and I'm talking about projects. So normally in Windows, you are used to just a file. So here, say file save as. I'm saving this project file, and also I'm not going to save it now, but the files that you import are called files. But what you're working on is a project. And I've never done it, but you can have multiple projects open at the same time. So sometimes when you want to, this is best practice. When you exit a file, go close all projects. It'll still be in Premiere Pro. You won't have exited it. This is where you exit, but you're just closing all projects. That's very important so that you don't have multiple projects open at the same time. It is possible to work on multiple projects. That's a bit higher grade. I have never had the need to try and do that. So exporting, I'm just going to give you the basic, this is what I do. Unless I want to export something with a transparent background, then it's a .mov file. That's a little bit different. But if I'm just exporting MP4s, this is what I do. YouTube, Vimeo, they all expect a standard called H.264. So the first thing that you need to know when you're exporting, sorry, let me just go back a minute here as well. Here again, if this blue box is not highlighted when you're exporting, it might not work. And secondly, you have to tell Premiere Pro what you want to export. It's not going to assume it's just everything on the timeline. So you have to say, this is the in part, I've pressed I, and this is the out part, I've pressed O, so in and out. You're telling it what to export. So often when I'm testing things, I might just take a little bit, export it, see what it looks like. But when I'm exporting the whole video, I would go in, out the whole video and export it. Also, when you export, be careful that things are not muted. Sometimes you're working and you don't want to hear the sound, or sometimes you're working on multiple layers. I'll get to multiple layers later. And you're turning layers off because it's getting too complicated. Do make sure that you turn everything on. Otherwise, you're going to have to do it all over again, because when you look at your rendered video, it's not going to be right. So when everything is highlighted and you've gone in and out, then you go File, Export, Media. The file standard format that it wants is H.264. And best practice for me, honestly, this works everywhere. I have uploaded a lot of files into Vimeo for clients, and this standard here seems for me to work everywhere. So Vimeo 1080 Full HD, it gets me the best quality anywhere. So that's all you have to do. And then sometimes when you have done that, this window will come up like this and you can't actually see the bottom there. You might have to move the window up a little bit to get to the export button. Press export and the process will start. So I've dealt with importing and export. Now I'm going to tell you about how to change your workspace, or what does it mean when I'm talking about workspaces, and what does it mean when I'm talking about windows. So this entire view that you're seeing here is a workspace, and the windows that you're seeing are windows. So firstly, to change a workspace, you go Window, Workspaces, and here you've got some options. So currently this one is opened in a color workspace. So on the side here, I've got some color editing capability. By and large, if you're using Vidnami videos, you're not going to be doing color editing. If you are filming or taking film from clients, you might want to do some color editing. I'm not really going to do a lot of color editing teaching in these 4 modules. I'm going to assume that you're just wanting to manipulate ready-made, fairly professional MP4s. So this is not the window we want to work in. You can go Window. The other one that I use a lot, Workspaces, and then Editing. Then you will see the color disappears on the side. Now that's handy because you might be working on a smallish screen like I am. I'm not fortunate. Well, I don't want a large screen because I tend to work out somewhere in a coffee shop with headphones on. That's how I roll. I don't sit in an office with a big screen. I used to work with a separate iPad screen when I had a Mac. I do still have a Mac, but it's inoperable at the moment. I don't have quite the same capability with Windows. So you tend to be quite economical with what you can see, and you want to move things around. So when you're editing, this is the best window. In the window, there are 3 important places that you want to work with. Sometimes you want to be able to see the projects box, and if it's not visible when you're working, then you can go Windows, show me the projects box, and then you see here I could have several projects open. It's that project, and this is the box here. I've only got 1 file in here, so it's just showing me those 2 views of it. If you have multiple assets on your timeline, it will show all those assets. You can scroll up and down there, and if you want to pull in another asset in a different time of your timeline, you can pull it in from the project box, or you can copy it and paste it, which I would get to in a little while. So when you're editing, the 2 windows that are important, I will tell you what this box is in a moment, what you can do with it. Without an effects box open, you can do some basic things. You can change the scale. Let me do that. I can make this smaller, bigger, or if I just want to reset, I can go to that. Reset to what you imported, not to your last, this is not the same as undo. Undo is similar, but it just goes a step back, so I can go edit undo over there. but reset takes it back to what you imported. Position, I can change this left to right. I can move it this way, that way, and I can reset it, and I can move it up and down. Also on this layer, I will firstly just go and get another asset and bring it in. Download. Take this one, put it there. So they're both quite similar animations. Now I've got two assets there. I'm going to separate this from that. And notice here, whoops, I've just overridden the one audio by doing what I did there. So I'm going to undo that because I dragged it across and this one was on the same layer. So if I did that, that wouldn't have happened. You have to highlight both. And then if I dragged it to the side, everything would have gone with it. But if I didn't highlight both, you might see these numbers happen on the side there, minus 000026. It means I've moved the video 26 seconds out of sync with the audio. And there, okay, it highlights in the red. That's what I wanted to show you. For now, I'm going to delete this audio. I don't want it. I just want to show you that I've got two layers here. Now, when I'm working on a layer, you have to highlight the layer and it goes white. And then you can see what that layer is like there. So now it's the top layer. If I now make this one smaller, I'm not seeing the bottom one because it's not showing on my timeline. There we go. My two layers are now on top of each other and I can move this one to the left or the right. You know, when you're doing a watermark, maybe this is what you want to do with a watermark. Premiere Pro doesn't really distinguish between a image and a video. It treats it the same on the timeline. You have similar controls on the side here. So I'm now going to make this, let's say that's my logo. I'm going to make it slightly opaque like that. So that's how you can do a watermark. Then I'm going to tell you about effects. So there's a lot of effects that you can apply to both video and audio layers. And you find those effects by going Windows Effects, and it will generally replace the projects box at the bottom. This is quite handy. I'm not importing anything. I'm just editing. Everything that needs to be on my timeline is on my timeline. I need these two boxes and I need to be able to see what I'm doing. So that's quite handy. So now I can, for example, use a crop, and you drag it and you drop it onto the asset that you want to manipulate. And then in the effect controls box, you look down, there's a crop. I'm just going to crop the bottom layer, the left-hand side, by 50% roughly. See what's happening there? I can also type in the number and just over-type it. It's enter. Now, something I want to show you with cropping is this edge feather. It makes the edges go blurry by degree. That's quite handy when you want something to blend in. This is not a good example because I'm doing the layer at the bottom, so I'm going to undo everything and I'm actually going to do the layer at the top. I'm going to put a crop onto that layer and I'm going to take the opacity off. So here, just slightly below, I'm just going to reset that to it's bright again. So now let's just try something. I'm going to try the edge feather without cropping. It does work. Okay, there we go. That's quite helpful, but it won't go out to the outside. To work in the opposite direction, there has to be a crop on it. So if I went one throughout, so it's just a slight crop on it, then this should work. It's only working to the one side. So why would you want layers? Why not just put clips like this, one behind the other? In a little while, I'm going to show you how to make things transparent. So let's say, for example, you want to put your watermark on top of the video. Now in Vidnami, you can do that in the program. That's not always that helpful because sometimes the color of the video and the color of your watermark, it just clashes and you can't see the watermark. So why have it there? It's just an annoyance. Sometimes you want to not have your watermark because it's obscuring something underneath if it's a watermark. So if you're doing it this way, you can chop it and change it the way that you want it on layers. You can also take what you're seeing here in these videos is me sitting, in this case, not in front of a green screen, but by and large, you will be seeing me cropped in a circle like this, and that's one layer above the screen share below that. And in this video that you're watching right now, there is subtitles, and the subtitles is in front of me here. So there's already 3 layers. Then also I will have my spoken audio on A1, audio 1, and underneath that I will at least have an intro and an outro bit of music, which will be on layer 2. So the layers are really important to get used to. They're very, very useful. Sometimes, like the video that you're watching now, I'm likely to have this video on about 7 layers. That's how I work. And it's not that complicated. It's easy to do because you have the tools. So I've told you about why you would want to mute things and why you would want to hide things. And that would end this module.